Hi everyone, this is Libby, and I have an important topic to discuss with you today, and I want to get your feedback on it and see what you think. The question is there a connection between pork and pandemics? This is what I'd like to cover with you. How do pigs contribute to the virus equation? Number two, pig pandemic in Asian countries occurred late 2018 into 2019 and was reported as swine flu. Number three, shortly after that, we see an outbreak of CV late 2019 and the national emergency declared March 13th, 2020. Number four, pigs and possible pandemics. Is there any connection or correlation to pig processing plants? You decide as we get further into this presentation. Number five, problem, reaction, solution. Do we all understand this? If not, I'll do a short review. First, I'd like us to review some excerpts from the book, What the Bible Says About Healthy Living by Dr. Rex Russell. He's an MD. And before we get into those particular excerpts, I want us to watch a short clip on a YouTube video. So let's go to that first.
I just urge you, don't put yourself at risk, and don't put others at risk either.
Meanwhile, Smithfield Foods in South Dakota is reportedly the biggest COVID-19 hotspot in the country, with 644 cases coming from a now closed pork processing plant. The U.S. Secretary of Agriculture, Sonny Perdue, tweeted Wednesday that he is doing everything he can to get the plant back open and minimize disruptions to the nation's food supply.
Okay, so keep that in mind. This pork processing plant has numerous cases, and we'll get into some of those details shortly. But let's look at the excerpt from this book because we need a foundational knowledge to build upon. Okay, here we go. The Perils of Pork. Jesus is one who was born under the law, did not eat pork. One time he used pigs as a dumping ground for demons, evicting the demons and destroying the swine. This event occurred after weeks of healing various diseases. One reason for God's rule forbidding pork is that the digestive system of a pig is completely different from that of a cow. It is similar to ours in that the stomach is very acidic. Pigs are gluttonous, never knowing when to stop eating. Their stomach acids become diluted because of the volume of food, allowing all kinds of vermin to pass through this protective barrier. Parasites, bacteria, viruses, and toxins can pass into the pig's flesh because of overeating. These toxins and infectious agents can be passed on to humans when they eat a pig's flesh. Were there any benefits? In the Biblical Archaeological Review, Jane Cahill examined the toilets of a Jewish household in Jerusalem, finding no parasites nor infectious agents, but only pollen from the many fruits, vegetables, and herbs they had eaten. A similar study about Egyptians revealed eggs from schistosoma, trichinella, wireworm, and tapeworm, all found in pork. All of these organisms cause significant chronic diseases. In what is probably a strong illustration of the perils of pork, at one time, no cases of trichinosis had been reported in the country of Bolivia for several years. However, 25% of pigs tested were infested with trichinosis. People working on these farms and the population eating the pigs were also found to be positive for infestation with this parasite. The primary symptoms of this infection included muscle pain, headaches, fever, and swelling in the extremities. These are all nonspecific symptoms that do not necessarily indicate any one disease. Although this may explain why the trichinosis had not been diagnosed in Bolivia for several years, it is strong circumstantial evidence that many people became ill because of pork. It is unfair to pose this question. Is it unfair to pose this question? Have you ever had unexplained muscle pain, headache, fever, or swelling? If a pig is exposed to human's DNA virus and then a bird's virus, the pig mixes the two viruses, developing a new DNA virus that is often extremely lethal for humans. These viruses have already caused worldwide epidemics and destruction. Virologists have concluded that if we do not find a way to separate humans from pigs, the whole Earth's population may be at risk. The 1942 Yearbook of Agriculture reported that 50 diseases were found in pigs, and many of these diseases were passed on to humans by eating the pig's flesh. Additionally, just handling swine has an element of risk. A large hog raising facility in the area where I live wisely requires its employees to wear gloves, masks, protective clothing while working in the pig barns. The workers are required to shower each day before going home. Little wonder that God would inspire his prophet to include eating pork among the disobedient acts of stubborn people who, in addition to idolatry and conjuring spirits of the dead, continually provoke me to my very face, who eat the flesh of pigs and whose pots hold broth of unclean meat. The threat of viruses. Hang in there with me now. Other unclean animals can possibly change benign viruses into toxic viruses. Often when a virus moves from one species in which it is harmless to another species, the new species can be devastated by the new variant of virus. The green monkey, another unclean animal, has been shown to do this in connection with the HIV virus. The swine flu epidemics from Hong Kong that now have occurred worldwide have been documented to develop by this mechanism. I hate to be an alarmist, but genetic engineering may be producing new toxic strains in our labs rather than just in the unclean animals. Some believe the Gulf War syndrome, a wasting disease affecting the immune system, is caused by a laboratory combination of a virus and a bacteria. Viruses carried by unclean animals apparently contribute silently to many other health problems. Dr. David Hajar found that the herpes virus causes ulcers in our arteries, leading to atherosclerosis. Other viruses have been found to cause rheumatoid arthritis and juvenile diabetes. Infectious diseases and strange, uncontrollable epidemics are occurring all over the world, spawning novels and movies, and their plots aren't fanciful. Something like 1/3 of the world's population is said to be at risk. So many people today violate these guidelines that the question is not, why do we get sick? But why aren't we all sick most of the time? This is important. Listen up. Doesn't cooking make it safe? Because we're going to hear later that that is declared to make it safe. So keep in mind this section right here. It's very important. Doesn't cooking make it safe? Some people tell me that unlike people in Bible times, we cook meat much better today, and that this renders even unclean meats harmless. One Bible commentary claimed that pork was forbidden in the Old Testament because it was eaten without being cooked, thus passing trichinosis to humans. The author thought that because we now cook meat, we no longer need to follow that law. In my opinion, this statement is incorrect. Sophisticated ovens and cooking devices have been found in the most ancient archaeological ruins, including most of the Israelites' ruins. They understood that cooking meat is certainly important. Can we safely assume that diseases caused by unclean animals have disappeared because we now cook things better? Who can bring a clean thing out of an unclean? Not one. That's a scripture verse from Job chapter 14, verse 4. Even the microwave often heats meat unevenly, allowing bacteria and parasites such as trichinosis to survive in meat. Many outbreaks of vicious infections have developed in so-called cooked foods. If the food is unclean, don't count on cooking it to protect you. Some of the most toxic poisons are not destroyed by heat. A sobering report from Scotland revealed that food poisoning by toxins, viruses, or bacteria occurred in spite of thorough inspection at every stage of food preparation, including handling and cooking. So the question is posed, why were scavengers designed? Why were scavengers created if not to eat? For one thing, they serve a useful role, just cleaning up the place. Many unclean animals, however, notably pigs and shellfish, are unhealthy because their diet consists of society's disease-laden refuse. As is well known, pigs will eat anything and everything. They were designed to clean up decaying flesh and pollution. Pigs have eaten Philadelphia's garbage and sewage for more than 100 years, saving the city $3 million a year in landfill costs. This is a wise use of hogs. They are designed to clean our environment. Even when stacked in cages, piglets thrive on offal, when only the pig in the top cage receives food. Farmers have increased their profits by feeding free raw sewage to pigs. Chicken farmers often keep a hog so they can dispose of dead chickens without having to bury them. Now keep that in mind, because it has been reported and that possibly bats have been the culprit to transfer this CV virus. So if bats have been identified as the possible culprit, I'm posing the question, could it be that the dead bats, and it's stated in a YouTube video by Democracy Now! That the Asian people eat bats. And so if they eat bats, if they clean bats, if they have leftover bats, is it possible that many of these small farmers that are raising hogs and pigs feed the table scraps to the pigs? So we're going to see if that is so shortly. So keep that in mind. It's important to know that pigs eat dead chickens, and they also feed freely on sewage and decaying flesh. So point number 2, pig pandemic in Asian countries, the late 2018 into early and mid 2019. This article is August 15th, 2019, and it's by NPR, titled "Swine Fever is Killing Vast Numbers of Pigs in China." So it says an epidemic of African swine fever is sweeping through China's hog farms, and the effects are rippling across the globe because China is a superpower of pork. Half of the world's pigs live in China, or at least they did before the epidemic began a year ago. Every day we hear of more outbreaks, says Christine McCracken, a senior analyst at Rabo Research, which is affiliated with the global financial firm Rabobank. McCracken and her colleagues now estimate that by the end of 2019, China's production of pork could be cut in half. That's roughly 300 million to 350 million pigs lost in China, which is almost a quarter of the world's pork supply, she says. It's a massive number. So I'll leave all the links to these articles. I'm not going to read all of this to you, and so you can pull them up and read them by yourself. This first paragraph on this next section, however, it does say African swine fever is not the same as swine flu. This disease is harmless, this article says, to humans. It can spread through contaminated pork products or the clothes of people working with infected pigs. It does not travel through the air, but it's long-lived and hard to get rid of, which Chinese farmers are learning the hard way. Another article, African swine fever hits Chinese pork industry in run-up to New Year. This was reported by The Guardian, and it's dated October 24th, 2018. It says a deadly and highly contagious virus is threatening pork production in China in the run-up to Chinese New Year, when demand for the country's most commonly eaten meat is at its highest level. That's sad. That's very sad that that is the country's most commonly eaten meat. It is the most unhealthy meat we possibly could eat as humans. Not saying it doesn't taste good. I was raised in Louisiana. We have Cochon delays. We have all the pork restaurants you'd like to go to eat barbecue. But it is the most unhealthy meat you can eat. Just know that. So it says, it goes on to say, over the past 3 months, African swine fever has spread to 12 Chinese provinces and area home to more than half the country's pig population. The virus passed through contaminated feed or exposure to infected animals, has a near 100% fatality rate, and there is no vaccine. On Monday, officials identified 2 cases in the south, the first in that region. About 70,000 pigs have been culled so far to prevent the spread of the virus, according to the Ministry of Agriculture, and much of the country's pig-producing provinces are on lockdown. The Agriculture Ministry said on Wednesday that it would ban the feeding of kitchen waste to pigs after linking the practice to the majority of the early cases. Beijing has not yet said how the disease entered the country, but the ministry found 62% of the first 21 outbreaks were related to the feeding of kitchen waste, according to a statement published on its website. So I'm just saying, you know, what if? What do you think? What if these small farmers that eat bats dispose of those bats to their hogs? Just something to consider. Something I'm thinking about. Just want to get your feedback. China, where pork consumption has increased in tandem with the country's economic rise, is home to half the world's population of pigs. Pork accounts for 2/3 of China's meat consumption and is considered such an important food staple that the government maintains a strategic pork reserve. On Tuesday, the southern province of Guangdong banned transport of its live pigs after an outbreak was discovered in neighboring Hunan province. In September, the Ministry of Agriculture banned interprovincial transport of hogs in 10 provinces next to affected regions. Beijing has banned imports of the product from any affected area of the country. So Chinese officials have been quick to report and act on the outbreaks and all of this. Please read through this entire article. You can pause, but due to limited time, I'm just going to hit a couple of highlights here. So Chinese officials have been quick to report and act on outbreaks and have advised residents that the virus poses no threat to humans. The true scale and risk of the virus's spread is still unknown, according to a U.S. Department of Agriculture report. The industry is still dominated by small producers and farms where biosecurity measures are more lax and contagion is more likely. Kitchen waste or swill, is widely used in China to feed pigs, particularly by small farmers, as it is cheaper than manufactured pig feed. Regulations require the swill to be heated to a certain temperature before being consumed, but industry experts say this step is often skipped. And then at the bottom, we read, the virus could also affect Chinese pork products globally. China is the world's largest pork producer, home to about 700 million pigs, half the global population. On Tuesday, Japan said it discovered, listen to this part, very important. On Tuesday, Japan said it discovered pork sausage brought over from Beijing that had been contaminated with African swine fever. The virus can survive in frozen pork products for years. So, let me repeat that. The African swine fever, that virus, can survive in frozen pork products for years. Number 3, outbreak of the CV virus late 2019 and national emergency was declared March 13th, 2020. Trump to declare national emergency to speed virus response. Then on April 13th, 2020, we saw Trump declares he has total authority to reopen after this virus. And then we saw him tweet on that same day, for the purpose of creating conflict and confusion, some in the fake news media are saying that it is the governor's decision to open up the states, not that of the president of the US and the federal government. Let it be fully understood that this is incorrect. Now, the other thing to keep in mind about this national emergency, we all know that they are pushing testing and they are pushing vaccines. We have some decisions to make, and we need to make informed decisions, not by what we hear anywhere, not from me, not from news outlets, whatever. We have to do our due diligence in research. We have to pray about it, and then we have to move forward. But know this, there has been a call for a vegan vaccine, as vegetarians say pork, gelatin in flu, MMR, and shingles jabs is putting people off getting them. So pork gelatin is used in these vaccines. So do you want a vaccine that contains pork gelatin? Think about that. If God doesn't want us to eat pork, do you think he wants us to have medications mixed with pork gelatin injected in us? That's a question. Just posing it, you decide. Okay, what are flu vaccines made of and why? This is another article. This was in Medical News Today. And again, I'll leave the links below this video. So, but I'm only going to talk to you about one of those components in the flu vaccines, and that is the gelatin. It says gelatin is present in the flu shot as a stabilizer. Stabilizers keep the vaccine effective from the point of production to the moment of use. Stabilizers also help to protect the vaccine from the damaging effects of heat or freeze drying. Most flu vaccines use pork-based gelatin as a stabilizer. So what kind of stabilizer might they be using for this CV virus? That's the question. And many Muslims don't eat pork, and I'm sure would not want to take pork gelatin vaccines. Other religious denominations do not eat pork. and probably would not want to take such. So we need to investigate what if this new vaccine they're coming up with, does it have a pork-based gelatin? This is something we all need to research. So, I may have this misnumbered, but the question is pigs and possible pandemics. Is there any correlation to pig processing plants? So I'll share with you these articles and you decide. So this is from WPBF.com. And the title of this article was, move this out of the way. One of the largest pork processing facilities in the U.S. is closing, until further notice. It says the Smithfield Pork Processing Plant in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, is seen Wednesday, April 8th, 2020, where health officials reported more than 80 employees have confirmed cases of the coronavirus. One of the country's largest pork processing facilities is closing until further notice as employees fall ill with COVID-19. The closure puts the country's meat supply at risk since the CEO of Smithfield, which operates the plant, said the CEO of Smithfield, which operates the plant. The closure of this facility, combined with a growing list of other protein plants that have shuttered across our industry, is pushing our country perilously close to the edge in terms of our meat supply. The meat processors' chief executive, Kenneth Sullivan, said in a statement Sunday, "It is impossible to keep our grocery stores stocked if our plants are not running," he said. These facility closures will also have severe, perhaps disastrous repercussions for many in the supply chain. The Sioux Falls, South Dakota facility accounts for 4% to 5% of the country's pork production and employs about 3,700 people, according to Smithfield. South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem said during a Saturday news briefing that Smithfield employees account for more than half of the active coronavirus cases in the state. About 240 employees are sick, she said, out of roughly 430 active cases in the state. Because of that, she and the mayor of Sioux Falls recommended that Smithfield suspend operations for at least 2 weeks. I think that was wise. The problem extends beyond South Dakota. Meat processors in Iowa and Pennsylvania have also shut their doors because of sick employees. And then in that same article, there's this graphic that shows at Tyson, 24 workers tested positive. All 1,400 employees will be paid, diverting shipments to Waterloo and Perry. It goes on to say Smithfield will maintain some activity in the plant on Tuesday to process its inventory, the company said, as it prepares to fully shut down, adding that it will compensate employees for the next 2 weeks. Another article was put out by PBS NewsHour, and this was dated September 12th, 2014. And they posed the question, who's behind the Chinese takeover of world's biggest pork producer? And then it talks about Smithfield Foods, the world's largest pork producer, was acquired by a Chinese firm in 2013 for nearly $5 billion, more than the company's market value. The surprising purchase caused some lawmakers to wonder if there might be a hidden player. As part of the series Food for $9 Billion, Nathan Halverson of the Center for Investigative Reporting examines how the Chinese government is involved. Again, he has interviews and it's all listed in that article, so be sure to go check that out and see what you think. Number 5, I wanted to talk about understanding problem, reaction, solution. And I found this excerpt from Ground Zero Media, and I thought it was very concise and to the point. So let me share it. It is problem, reaction, solution. The problem could be made up or very real. It is the magic of suggestion or even a gain of function to get a reaction. The solution may or may not be what you have hoped for, but those who have created the problem do so because they know what the outcome will be, because they control it all. They have planned it well in advance. They have created the problem and they have the antidote. Meanwhile, people will feel the pain, people are already feeling the pain, and demand that something should be done. It is a conversion process. Hegel knew that humanity had a pre-existing condition. He knew that when people are outside of their comfort zone, they settle for the quick fix. They resort to knee-jerk options. No one is immune from the trap on the Hegelian dialectic. It, like COVID-19, is a virus, but a virus of the psychological kind. It is a virus that will force you to lose your mind to ulterior agendas and ideologies that go against your core beliefs. Well said. In closing, I want us to look at this article. It was put out April 23rd, 2020. U.S. meat packing bends to coronavirus pressure. So this was just put out yesterday. This is the 24th I'm doing this recording. So we need to read this. Let's get the bad news out of the way first. Meat packing is a messy business, almost custom designed to generate coronavirus outbreaks among the staff. When a cow or hog is brought into the slaughter facility, it is slit, hung, let out, and then has its skin and organs removed, all in 30 minutes. Since the typical cow weighs a half a ton, it is the ultimate team effort. No social distancing here. Later on, the carcass is broken down into pieces for restaurants, supermarkets, with other parts sent on to processing into things like sausages and ground beef. Social distancing is at least possible at these stages, but establishing that all-important 6-foot bubble means fewer people on the line. That means lower throughput, which means less meat. Best guess, roughly 10 to 15% of the country's beef processing and 25% of its pork processing is currently offline. We should expect that any plant shutdowns will last at least until the staff recovers. For most young, healthy folks, that's about 3 weeks. There's also not a lot of spare capacity to ramp things up once these plants reopen. Most plants run 2 shifts, 6 days a week. And since most of the labor is migrant, expanding the staff isn't something that can be done in a few days or weeks, especially if a substantial percentage of the staff is out with coronavirus. The issue is amplified in states that have no social distancing guidelines, and as you can see from the map, there is significant overlap. Now the good news, or goodish news. Now, I didn't find everything totally accurate in this portion, but I want your opinion. What do you think, based on what we've read so far? So it says purging a facility of COVID-19 is pretty straightforward. It just requires removing the vectors from the facility and doing a scrub down. Meat packing plants regularly close every week or three for top to bottom cleaning and sterilization, so this is baked into normal operations. Nor can you get coronavirus from meat that came through any of the impacted facilities. Most beef and pork is in a chiller for a few days, parentheses, more than enough time to kill the virus. I question that based on what we've read so far. I may be wrong. You decide. Multiple sterilization stages are used throughout the slaughter and packing processes, all of which could kill the virus. Don't know. And then once the meat makes it to your house, you cook it. Also more than enough to kill the virus. That's not what we read out of Rex Russell, MD's book. Just sharing different viewpoints. You investigate more, you decide, but I most certainly can attest that pork should not be eaten. Matter of fact, it's very hard these days to avoid contaminating ourselves with pork, because you can go to a Mexican restaurant and order black beans thinking you're getting black beans, and then only to lo and behold, they season it with bacon. So things are not always clearly marked. And most of you weren't even aware probably that vaccines have that gelatin pork-based aspect to them. So it's truly a challenge to find clean, healthy food these days. And then finally, there will not be a shortage of animal inputs for the meat packers. America's markets recently opened up by the Trump administration. The ranchers' problem is too many animals right now, too many to the point that some pork producers are euthanizing and burying hogs because they cannot get them to a slaughterhouse. The issue is not a shortage of animals. The issue is the bottleneck at the slaughter meat packing stage of the supply chain. So this is a huge issue. I know that we rely on meat, most definitely. I would love to see us move to cleaner meats. And I know the livelihood of many that work at these pork producing plants are being challenged right now. So in closing, I want us to remember this scripture in Colossians 2:16, because it's often misinterpreted. It says, "Let no man therefore judge you in meat or in drink or in respect of a holy day or of the new moon or of the Sabbath days." Many use this verse just to say, well, you can just eat anything you want to. It's good, just eat it all. So either knowingly or unknowingly, they interpret this scripture to say that people can eat anything they want according to his word. This is incorrect. Paul was writing to the Colossian believers that were keeping God's commands among people that followed pagan practices and sun day worship. The pagan society around them were adversely judging their faithful practices to Yahweh or God. Yes, by free choice, people most certainly eat anything they want, but that is not, repeat, that is not according to his word. He's given us free will. We can go out and eat anything we want, but that is not what his word tells us to do. His word tells us to eat clean meat, not unclean meat. We are what we eat. And further down here it says, God informed Noah of the differences between clean and unclean food. He gives all of us a more detailed list in Leviticus 11. So look that up in your Bible, and he clearly spells out what meats are clean. So God has warned us through his word that it is his desire and command that we eat clean animals for our health and protection. He's not trying to limit our joy of eating. He's trying to enhance our health and protection. And God, Yahweh, never mixes clean and unclean. So we've covered how do pigs contribute to the virus equation. We covered the pig pandemic in Asian countries late 2018 into 2019 that was reported as swine fever. We've talked about the outbreak of CV in the latter part of 2019 and the national emergency declared in March 13th, 2020. We looked at pigs and possible pandemics. Is there any correlation to pig processing plants? From what we read, I'm asking, you decide. What do you think? Leave your comments in the description section. And then we discuss the Hegelian dialectic of problem, reaction, solution, and mankind's desire to have that quick fix and give away freedoms and liberties for that quick fix. It's not worth it. So my new channel that I'll be uploading this video to is on BitChute. My LibbyTube on YouTube has been locked down for no reason. I cannot upload, I cannot download. So I'm still trying to get that sorted. Until then, I've started this new channel. It needs a lot of love, so go by there and subscribe and share this video. Share this video with more prominent video channels. And so time is short. It was hard to do this video. It's hard, you know, in the midst of all the negative reports we've been given to share this information. So research it, study it, and you decide. So may God bless you. May he keep you. May his face shine upon you. May he protect you from harm. May he protect you from illnesses. And thank you for watching. I pray that this was of help to you. I cannot tell you the trouble I had getting this recorded. I had to use several venues just to find one that would not act up. So I believe I've got it recorded for you. I hope and pray it is appreciated, and I hope and pray it helps you have some insights to the possibility about the connection of pork and viruses, especially here in Louisiana, where they declare the coronavirus numbers rising, 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 rising. Well, I can tell you, I live here. I've lived here all my life. Huge pork consumption here in the state of Louisiana. So take care. Blessings. Thanks for watching. Until next time. See you then. Bye-bye.